Welcome to the Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam. Ship my $50,000 on DraftKings share as we get ready for a Saturday slate that is beyond impossible. We have a 1 o'clock, a 2 o'clock, an ignored 6 o'clock game, and then we got a double header from that 1 o'clock game, which is going to be the Yankees and Boston, and they are on the main slate. We got a 12-game main slate on Saturday. Adam, I bet you're sad that Laffy is not riding the deep dive tomorrow. Talk to me, my friend.
Yeah, normally Saturdays are pretty nice. It's normally a split slate. I have to cover like 6 or 7 games, but I guess I got a full slate here, which really for the article, it's really not that big of a deal. It in a lot of ways it's better because I don't have to write about guys that I don't want to write about just because they're the best on the slate. Normally you're going to get a lot of options to choose from, and I think that's the case tonight as well.
Absolutely. Could you have imagined writing this slate up? Laffy got the honors for that one.
I was not jealous of Laffy. I had to talk about the slate twice, obviously, on the strategy show and then on the deeper dive show. And just talking about it verbally was enough to, kind of annoy me with how bad the pitching was. So having to actually write that down and put it into words would have not been fun.
Not fun at all. But you know what is fun? We got all sorts of it. If you're playing on Yahoo, they are the sponsor of the Early Bird Podcast. And of course, we will talk about them. They should have the management fee free contest. Let me just double check that they're there on Saturday. They've been tweaking it a little bit, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, they are going to be putting that one up for the NFL, which, goodness gracious, we are not that far away. If you're looking for NFL, we've got it here. We've got fantasy football season-long content. We've got best ball content. And best of all, it's free. Yahoo does have a 12-game main slate contest tomorrow. No management fee, $3 entries, 10 entry max, 4,500 in, 4,500 out. And if you have not yet signed up, use the promo code AWESEMO, but come in on our link. That is the key part. Go to any of the Spotlight Hitter articles, which are free every single day by yours truly. Third paragraph will give you the link and the instructions on how to get that $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points for your first DFS deposit. Wait for it. I didn't say season-long deposit. First DFS deposit. All right, Adam, let's take a gander at what we've got going on here. We have warm temperatures heading into the evening on Saturday. Shockingly enough, hey, it's summertime. But we are looking in the upper to mid, or mid 80s. A couple places are in the 90s, and then a few are in the 70s. So we'll check that out. But let's go game by game. We are going to hit the pitchers only. Reminder, you will get Adam and I at 11:15 on Saturday morning, going game by game, pitchers, hitters, weather, all the good stuff, game strategy, game flow on the DFS strategy show. Hey, that's why we call it the strategy show. But definitely check us out. Tonight is just your foundational podcast, as one Dan Strafford likes to talk about. Adam, I'm turning this one over to you because we're starting off with some exciting pitching options here. We have Ross Detweiler, woohoo, and Aaron Nola going in our 7 o'clock game. That is the Chicago White Sox facing the Philadelphia Phillies. What do you want to do with that massive buildup?
Not talk about Detweiler, but Aaron Nola in a really good spot here against the White Sox. One of the better matchups that you're going to get as a right-handed pitcher. They, coming into this game, their active roster has the 4th highest strikeout percentage at 25.7%. They have an 87 WRC plus. Nola's a good pitcher. He even struggling earlier in the year. His called strike plus swinging strike percentage has been towards the top of all qualified starters all year long. For the season, he has a 26.4% strikeout percentage. The walk percentage is a bit concerning at 9.5%, but the White Sox also have one of the lowest walk percentages in all of baseball, 3.97 xFIP for Nola. The only real knock on Nola, I guess you want to call it that, is just the fact that it's a slate that has several aces on it, and Walker Buehler's in a really good spot against the Padres. Matt Boyd has a favorable matchup against Texas, although it is in Texas. So there are some pretty good options at the top. But, other than that, I think it's a really good slate for Nola.
All right, and I definitely would agree with that. If we're looking at Ross Detweiler, he does give up power to both lefties and righties. Happens to be a lefty himself, so of course he gives up more power to righties. Last 100 righties faced in the major leagues. This is going to be amongst a couple teams, but it is a 100 at bat sample size, 460 WOBA, 255 ISO. Yikes, that is going to be a mess there. So if you're looking for a home run call, that might be the way to go. Detweiler coming into his 10th year here, career 4.44 ERA, and it doesn't really get much better. He was a former Washington National. I actually got to watch him pitch live, I think 3 times, because I've been to about 25 Nationals games, but yikes, the career has not transpired after he left the Nationals. Moving on to our next game here, Adam, we have the New York Mets at Pittsburgh. A little bit of floating precipitation here on the East Coast. Now, you're going to want to look at this closer to lock. We are, of course, recording this on Friday night. We're about 22 hours out from anything that is going on, so you're going to want to take another double check. There have been floating storms. There's a lot of humidity on the East Coast. It's not as hot as it was 2 weeks ago, but there are chances of precipitation, but it is not really hitting the radar or getting closer until we are closer to lock. So definitely check that out. We saw what happened in Atlanta on Thursday night, where they ended up with a random storm that sat over the freaking stadium, and that was a 10% chance of a PPD. And wait for it, they stopped it early. But the game did go. I think they called it after 6 or 7 innings, but that is what happens in baseball. Adam, we have Marcus Stroman on DraftKings at 9,600. I mean, this feels like the Sonny Gray treatment. They're not quite going to get him to 10,000, nor should he deserve it. We'll save Sonny Gray for another day. But you got Chris Archer on the other side, who has been a mess this season. Yikes. I would consider Stroman, but not at 9,600. That feels like a bridge too far. Any interest in either of these pitchers? I'm going to check out some of our other price points here on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough matchup for Stroman as far as strikeouts go. It's an above average Pittsburgh offense. And then you're talking about a guy with a 19.3% strikeout percentage. For context, when you look at this slate, Adrian Sampson's at 19.5, Cal Quantrill's at 19.2, Stroman's in the middle at 19.3. I understand that he's a good pitcher. He gets a lot of ground balls. He's one of the best. He has one of the lowest barrels per batted ball percentages of all qualified starters this year. All that stuff is great. It doesn't really translate to a ton of DFS points. It does translate to being a good real life pitcher that prevents runs. But that only gets you so far as accumulating fantasy points. So just no interest for me at 9,600. Really wouldn't have interest in this matchup at pretty significantly lower price tags either. And then the other side, Archer, pretty tough. Continues to just be pretty mediocre this year. The Mets are a slightly above average offense. They have, especially 1 through 5, some good hitters there from McNeil through Ramos. So I could understand getting to a little bit of Archer just because you on 2 pitcher sites, just because you need a mid-range arm, but certainly not someone that I'm excited to get to or that I plan on getting a lot of.
Yeah, Stroman is the 11th most expensive pitcher there on Yahoo at 36, so some interest there, but your mileage may vary, and then it's a mess. Archer is 33 there. I really do not want to see him in action. Stroman over on FanDuel seems like a bit of a mess. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th most expensive pitcher, but it's $9,000. Yeah, not really for me. And then Archer is just a couple below him at 7,900, but he is just the 14th most expensive pitcher. There are other ways to go here, and I think that might be fool's gold. Let's continue along here as we have so many options tonight. Our next game, Adam, near and dear to your heart, we have Thomas Pannone, the lefty, at 5,000 even on DraftKings, going against the Baltimore Orioles, who have struggled on offense. They have been glorious for opposing offenses. They have taken over the most runs allowed lead from the Seattle Mariners and then some. I think they're about 15 or 20 runs ahead. But Dylan Bundy, 6,900, Adam. That seems nice. Talk to me about Bundy. Any interest in Thomas Pannone?
Not really in Pannone. Obviously, he's 5K, so you can get there in some tournament lineups, but not someone that I would expect to get much of. Bundy's a bit more interesting just because his price tag is very reasonable. He has for the season a 23.3% strikeout percentage. Against righties, it's much higher. He struck out 28.3% of righties, 18.2% of lefties. He does give up home runs, especially to righties. He's allowed a 202 expected ISO compared to 158 to lefties. The Blue Jays projected lineup has 5 righties if Randall Grichuk's in it. Grichuk is questionable because on Thursday night, he fouled a ball off of his mouth. Not sure how many teeth he has left. It was pretty ugly. But should be a pretty balanced lineup overall for the Blue Jays. So I think it's an okay spot for Bundy at that salary. We do know that he tends to be allowed to go relatively deep in the games, and that's pretty appealing when you're talking about a mid-range or a lower mid-range arm.
All right, let's call this a 40% outcome for Bundy. His last start against Toronto was in the Rogers Center. It was July 5th, so basically a month ago. He went 96 pitches, 6 2/3 innings, allowed 1 earned run on a solo shot, 6 strikeouts. He had 5 base runners and 26 DK points. He was 8,100 that night and basically paid that off. 6,900, a little warmer there in Camden Yards, but still definitely in play at 6,900. So give that some consideration. We'll have to see where ownership comes out, but do not write him off just yet, depending on the lineup, as Adam mentioned. And the one thing that we're going to see with Toronto, they have the best bloodlines or heredity. Is that the right word? Pedigree. Thank you. Let's roll with that because they have Dante Bichette's kid. They have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and then they have Craig Biggio's kid. Basically, top 5 of their order is borderline Hall of Famers. But yeah, they're all young, and they're other veterans at this point. We're looking at Justin Smoak and Grichuk, who is probably not going to play, as Adam mentioned. So it's going to be a tough one. We're going to see some boom and bust with that lineup. They do have the potential for tomorrow. They're not exactly cheap, but they will be underutilized with 12 games on the slate. So give them a little bit of consideration against Bundy. Our next game is going to be the, New York. No, we talked about that one. Sorry. The Chicago White Sox. No, we talked about that one. Are we good? Are we on to the next? Oh, one more 7:05 game. Boston and the Yankees. Yikes. We do not yet have a Boston pitcher. Potentially, it is going to be Brad Johnson as cannon fodder coming off the injured list. That is not someplace I would like to go. On the other side, really, are they going to do an opener with Chad Green? Adam, this feels like a mess. Any thoughts on Boston or New York with these pitchers, or any thought to who they might go to?
No, just a lot of moving parts right now. It's the second game of a doubleheader, so really remains to be seen, I think, what exactly they do.
Yeah, good call out. Let's get to something more interesting. Wait, it's not more interesting, but they are cheap. Felix Pena could have an opener in front of him, as he does more often than not. He is going against Cleveland. This game is in Cleveland. It's the Angels versus the Indians. On the other side, you have Adam Plutko, who's down to 5,500 on DraftKings, and wait for it, he has earned that price tag. His last 4 starts, -3, -1, 20, and 3. Those are DK points. Not that exciting, but on the season, someone we do have to consider at 5,500. But it's against the Angels, one of the least teams likely to strike out. Do you like either side on this? And will we get those new additions to the Cleveland lineup with Puig and Franmil Reyes?
Yeah, I mean, they should be. They've played a couple of games with Cleveland now, Puig and Reyes, that is. So that lineup should be at full strength, and it makes it a pretty imposing lineup. Not a ton of strikeouts in the lineup. Puig and Reyes do add to that a bit, but with obviously good power hitters. So Cleveland's lineup gets a lot deeper. I don't really have interest in the pitching here. Pena, still a tough lineup against Cleveland. Plenty of lefties in there that can give him trouble with Lindor, Santana, Ramirez, Kipnis. And then Plutko is just bad. Like you said, not a lot of strikeouts in the Angels lineup. A lot of good hitters in the Angels lineup. Just really unappealing.
All right, our next one, Danny Duffy, Kyle Gibson squaring off. We have Danny Duffy going against Minnesota. Not as many strikeouts as we would have thought against the Twins this season, even though they do have most of their craptastic strikeout guys back. Danny Duffy, the lefty, it's going to be a tough one. He has faced them once before. I don't hate him at 7,400, but it feels incredibly dangerous, and we do not really need to go there. On the other side, Kyle Gibson going against Minnesota. Against Kansas City. This will be the third time he has faced them. He has done quite well in his first two times, 12 and 2/3 innings. He has allowed a 3.5 earned run average, a 1 whip or slightly under, and then 8 strikeouts in 12 innings. He is 8,900. We do have Coors Field on the slate. We do have Texas on the slate. You and Laffy appropriately like Kyle Gibson in the right spot. At 8,900, is he reasonable on DraftKings? He is 81 on FanDuel, and he is 36 on Yahoo. I think Yahoo is the winner here slightly.
Yeah, I think he's a good play on Yahoo at 36. Kansas City does have that lineup. The bottom of the order at this point is pretty bad once you get past Jorge Soler. So I think it's a good matchup. It's just that it's tough to pay. It's tough to pay up, 8,100 for him on FanDuel where you're only rostering one pitcher. It's tough to pay 8,900 on DraftKings, although the options around him at that salary aren't appealing. So I could see where getting to some Gibson just as a function of being able to afford a 9K pitcher but not a 10K pitcher in some lineups. Obviously I would rather get to a 10.1K Nola than an 8,900 Gibson, but some lineups you're just not gonna be able to make that happen. Gibson I think is in a better spot than Stroman against Pittsburgh. I think he's in a better spot, better strikeout pitcher too than Keuchel against the Reds, Fires against St. Louis. I think that he's the best in that group, basically between Aaron Nola and then if you wanted to consider like John Gray against the Giants and Coors, you certainly could. But in between, I think Gibson's probably the best. Not a priority for me. Don't want to get to tons, but could end up in some lineups just for that reason.
All right, our next one is going to be the Seattle Mariners at Houston, finishing off our 7-10 games. We still have one more 7 o'clock game, or 7 o'clock hour game. We'll get to that in a moment. It is Marco Gonzalez, one of my actual favorite pitchers, but this is going to be a tough one. Now, Gonzalez does not allow as many home runs as most would think. He has allowed just 14 this season in 134 innings. The rest of his brethren, they're giving up the home runs for Seattle. Mike Leake no longer with Seattle. We have UC Kikuchi going tonight against Houston. That will be interesting to see what happens. But Gonzalez actually not too shabby. He is 7,200. That's a tall order against Houston. This will be the third time he's facing them. He has actually not allowed a home run against them in his 10 innings over his 2 starts. He has a 1.5 whip. He has a 4.4 ERA, 8 strikeouts, which is pretty solid for him because we don't always get those. This is going to be a tough one for him. Third straight lefty that Houston's going to face. I do not want to go there. The guy I want to talk about, though, is recent acquisition Aaron Sanchez from Toronto. Adam, he is now a Houston Astro. They have said, we're going to put him in our starting rotation. Wow, I thought they had more, I'm going to say it, more better pitchers than that. But son of a gun, he is 5,300 going against the Mariners. The Mariners have pretty much given away the farm. Aaron Sanchez, dicey at best, but holy hell, I'm considering him at 5,300 with all these offensive spots that we have. What is your initial look? And of course, we will have more on this at the 11:15 mark tomorrow morning when we do the DFS strategy show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. The price tag, he's 5,300 on DraftKings, 29 on Yahoo. Obviously, the 2 pitcher sites. The Mariners have a high strikeout percentage. They don't have the best lineup. One scary thing is that they do have a lot of lefties in their lineup, and that's kind of always been an issue for Sanchez. But this year, he actually does have a 22.1% strikeout percentage against lefties compared to 15.7 against righties. His expected WOBA is lower against lefties. Expected ISO is a little bit higher, but not a bad spot to take a chance on him. He's one pitcher too that I always talk about how I wish, or I wanted Matt Boyd to go to the Astros or Kyle Gibson to go to the Astros. Sanchez is one that I'm pretty excited that he's there. I think there's a good chance he ends up eventually pitching out of the bullpen, which obviously it won't matter for DFS, but he has really good stuff. He's got a good fastball. He's got breaking stuff that moves a ton. He's just a pitcher that, for I don't really know the reason, has never been able to put it together as far as becoming a strikeout pitcher. But he has the tools where it wouldn't be surprising if Houston turns him into a much, much, much better pitcher than we've ever seen him be. Obviously, I'm not expecting that to happen in the first start, but just kind of something to keep in mind too with Sanchez going forward for as long as he stays in Houston's rotation.
Yeah, and this seems like something reasonable because we've seen Houston turn many pitchers at this point into better pitchers with the using air quotes spin rate. But with Aaron Sanchez, you're looking at a nice bullpen arm. As you mentioned, that's not going to help us out now. But if we get a few moments, if he gets a little tip or a trick here from Garrett Cole or Justin Verlander or anybody else, that could be interesting at his current price point. So he is someone, God, reluctantly, if he's still with Toronto, I probably wouldn't roll with him that much. But I'm feeling like 10 or 15% with all the offenses we have on this slate. He is someone to consider in our 12-game main slate here on Saturday. Moving on to our next game, we have Trevor Bauer with the new team, Dallas Keuchel with his new-ish team. This won't be his first start for Atlanta, but he is someone who is a former Cy Young winner, something that... wait, Bauer's never got a Cy Young. He's been close, though, right?
I'm not sure.
Pretty sure. Almost positive, but
there's only one season that he would have even had a chance, and I don't think
he got it. I'm pretty sure he didn't, but I always hate to say with definitive answers that he got it. Now, Keuchel is 8,200. That's a tough one there going against Cincinnati, but we know that some of their best hitters, now that they've shipped out Puig and others, this is a better matchup for him going against Cincinnati. This one is in Atlanta. On the other side, Trevor Bauer making his first start for Cincinnati, and intriguing and interesting. I was going to try to combine those words in a portmanteau, as one fast Eddie Fear would say, but we have Bauer coming in here. This is not going to be the first time he's faced Atlanta. He went 6 1/3 against them previously, 10 strikeouts. I don't want to draw anything from that, but Bauer, 11,100 on DraftKings. I think people are going to stay away. On Yahoo, he is the third most expensive pitcher at 50. Strasburg is at 54. Nola is at 51. And then over on FanDuel, Bauer is the second most expensive pitcher, barely. Walker Buehler going against San Diego's 11.4. Bauer is 11.2. It feels like if we're going to play him, it's going to be Yahoo or it's going to be DK on the two pitcher sites. What are your thoughts for Bauer in this difficult matchup against Atlanta that does have basically equal hitters of solid aptitude from either side of the plate, which makes it tough for any opposing pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really have interest in either one. Tough matchup for Bauer against Atlanta, and there are other guys at the top. You know, we already talked about Nola against the White Sox. Boyd's got a favorable matchup against Texas. Buehler's in a great spot against the Padres, and then that's without even mentioning Strasburg against Arizona or Ray against the Nats. So it's really tough for me to get to Bauer. Just not a good matchup. And then on the other side, Keuchel, not a high strikeout pitcher. There's not a lot of strikeouts in the Reds lineup, even though it's not as good a lineup on paper. Not even really bad hitters, at least, like 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. So I don't really have interest in pitching here.
All right. Next one's going to be a tough one. We have Detroit at Texas. You have Matt Boyd going against, I guess, a relatively lefty-heavy lineup. If we're considering Texas, they have, Chu, Calhoun, Odor, and Mazzara that are going to be coming from the left side. But if they put in some righties, it's going to be dicey. So Elvis Andrus is against everybody, but he is batting third. Danny Santana having one heck of a season. He's going to be a little spendy. He is a switch hitter. Hunter Pence resurgent now that he is out of San Francisco. And then Logan Forsythe hoping to reach back 3 years ago when he was with the Tampa Bay, I'm going to say it, Adam, Devil Rays. And he was an excellent lefty killer. And then you have Delino DeShields. I forget which one of our hosts said he could be batting somewhere between first and ninth in the lineup. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. I still like Matt Boyd, 10,400. It's going to be 85 degrees in Texas. This is a local 7:05 start. It is going to be not overly humid for what we are used to seeing in Texas, by 50 to 60%. Would you spend for Matt Boyd on any of the sites?
Yes, in tournaments, I don't think that you need to look there in cash games. It's pretty unnecessary. But I can almost guarantee right now that Boyd is just not going to get a lot of ownership in tournaments because Texas right now is a 4.8 implied run total. The White Sox facing Nola are at 3.6. The Padres facing Bueller. We don't have a line, but it's going to be in the low to mid threes. The Diamondbacks against Strasburg are at 3.8. So he's not from like a just medium projection standpoint, he's not going to project as well as those guys, but he's been the best on the entire slate this season in terms of just pitching. He has the highest strikeout percentage at 32.5%. He has the lowest walk percentage. Second lowest to Madison Bumgarner at 5.3%. He has the best xFIP on the slate at 3.33. Second best to Strasburg. He's just been one of the best pitchers in baseball, really, no matter what metric you look at. And the Rangers, while they can have some righties in their lineup, if you look at this team since 2017 against left-handed pitching, Asdrubal Cabrera has a 100 WRC plus. Hunter Pence has a 100 WRC plus. Beyond that, there's nothing. Everyone's below 100. Andrus is at 96. Santana's at 96. Forsythe 93. Chu 85. Calhoun 67. Odor 66. Mazzara 62. Mathis 48. It's a really bad team offensively in this split against a really, really good pitcher. Ballpark is not good, but I think in tournaments there's a lot of reason to consider Boyd.
All right, and then on the other side, Adrian Sampson. Well, if we are looking at the best possible matchup he could have, it probably would be against the Detroit Tigers without Castellanos, who is no longer with them. He is now a Cub. 4,500, Adam. I gotta at least ask, is he in the player pool? Player pool only. We will have more information tomorrow morning.
Who is that?
Adrian Sampson.
Is he in the player pool?
For you, is he in your? I'm sorry. Is he in your pitching pool at 4,500? Yeah. Or is he too hot to touch?
No, I mean he's facing the Tigers. He's 4,500. It's not like you're expecting him to really do great things or anything, but 19.5% strikeout percentage, a little bit higher than Marcus Stroman, 4.5% walk percentage, 4.85 xFIP. It's not like he's the worst pitcher in baseball or something. Yeah, I mean I can definitely see getting to some of him in tournaments.
All right, now to be fair, let's talk about implied run totals. On the main slate, the Phillies 6. We have Toronto against Bundy 5.2. We don't have a Yankees pitcher, so we're still waiting on that one. But the Yankees have a 5.3 implied total against Brian Johnson. We have a 6.3 implied run total for Houston against Marco Gonzalez. We don't have an Angels pitcher, so that one is sitting still. We have 6.1, and we'll get to, we already talked about it, against Danny Duffy by the Twins. We have, let's see, I've got one more good one. Oh, gosh, Coors Field. We're looking at each team with a 6 or a 6.5 implied run total against each other. Madsen Bumgarner facing the Rockies with the 6.4 implied run total. John Gray with the 5.7 implied run total. With the Giants coming against him. Yikes, this one is going to be a mess. So we might be looking for some value. It may have to appear. Good God, who knows where. New one here. Robbie Ray looks to be pitching against Steven Strasburg. This one will be interesting. We do know that the roof is going to be closed in Arizona. Robbie Ray was scratched. Let's see. He was pushed back a day to start against the Nationals. Alex Young moved up a day. courtesy of RotoWorld. They say, simply, this would be a case of Diamondbacks giving Ray an extra day of rest. He last started on Sunday against the Marlins with 11 high strikeout for the season. And then the other mention was the day before, trade talks between the Yankees and Diamondbacks are now dead. So who knows where Robbie Ray's mindset is. But with the roof closed, this seems like a tough one between him and Strasburg in Arizona. Do you like either of these guys against the opposing team with their respective premium price tags that we are looking at on the site, every site actually?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough matchup for both guys. Ray in particular, you have a Nats lineup that is really difficult to strike out. I went through when we thought he was going to pitch on since the start of last season was, if I remember correctly, Juan Soto at 20.4%. So just not a lot of strikeouts there. There's plenty of other options you can go to. I think that I just won't really get to Ray because, like, if I'm looking to roster a really talented high upside pitcher at low ownership, I can get that with Matt Boyd in a better spot.
All right. Let's see. Damn it, I lost my place here. Did we?
What?
Sorry, I'm just saying I lost my place and I was writing off the games. Did we? We mentioned Pena and Plutko against each other, right? Way back in the 7 o'clock games.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Colorado. San Fran, Colorado. John Gray, 7,800. Madison Bumgarner, 7,600. These are DK prices. If we are looking at FanDuel, we got to scroll way the heck down. Madison Bumgarner, 7,500. John Gray, 7,200. And then on Yahoo, it is, wait for it because I want to get the word out to our friends. 39 and 37. Bumgarner a little more expensive. Gray 37. Feels more like a short slate appearance for either of these guys. But how are you feeling about this one, Adam? And looking at the weather, it is going to be it's going to be 90 at first pitch at 7 o'clock in Colorado. That is an 8 o'clock Eastern start. Yikes. I don't really want to go with either of these guys. Talk to me about game theory here at best.
I think that I think Gray is interesting. He's just a good pitcher, and the Giants aren't good. Huge park downgrade for Bumgarner. It's tough to really consider him against the Rockies, but John Gray, I think, is certainly in play because the mid-range is pretty weak. He's, like I said, he's just a good pitcher. He comes in the game with a 24% strikeout percentage, 3.87 xFIP. Not the best strikeout matchup against the Giants. Against right-handed pitching this year, their active roster has struck out 22% of the time, which is not a guy that I expect my night to hinge on, but I think that getting to some John Gray in tournaments is fine.
All right, so let's we have 2 games after this one. So let's hit this one just for a second for those that are only listening to the Early Bird podcast. You will get the DFS strategy show where we are going through all 16, that's right, 16 games, doubleheader there with Boston and New York. But looking at this one, Madison Bumgarner, 7,600. I'm not really going to be a fan. Too many good righties for Colorado, and this one is in Coors Field. You mentioned John Gray being very solid. How many of these hitters really scare you? Brandon Belt, Buster Posey, Pablo Sandoval, Scooter Gennett, Mike Yastrzemski, Austin Slater, whoever is catching, if it's not Pablo Sandoval, and then I missed somebody here, Kevin Pillar. Nobody scares me. Brandon Belt, I guess. That's it.
It's a lineup where I've referred to. I think I've referred to the Orioles as like it's a team of guys where they're good enough that if Gray doesn't have good stuff, they can take advantage, especially in this park. But if Gray has his stuff, it's not a lineup where anyone outside of maybe Brandon Belt really scares you.
No, and that's a good one. This is one of the things I like to say. It's the old adage, that managers used to say way back in the day, no matter how good you are, you're going to win a third of your game, or you're going to lose a third of your games. No matter how bad you are, you're going to win a third of your games. It's the other third that matters. That generally does apply to pitchers. I mean, unless you're one of the top 5, maybe 10 pitchers, if you're not in the Cy Young conversation, you're probably going to have 10 craptastic starts. And then if you're a crappy pitcher, you're going to have 10 starts where your stuff is good. This is going to be one of those where if John Gray has good stuff at 7,800 on DraftKings, this is reasonable. We know that the Giants do not strike out. They strike out more than they have in the past, but they've given away a bunch of their guys. They got some people who are hurt. This is an intriguing matchup. If you are looking at game theory, this is one to look at for John Gray on DraftKings in particular. Now on FanDuel, he is 7,200. On FanDuel, my choice is I like to get the better pitchers. I'm going to be thinking about Bauer. I'm going to be thinking about Strasburg with the roof closed in Arizona. I'm going to be thinking about Aaron Nola facing a pitcher from the Chicago White Sox. Hey, that's not a bad spot. And then Matthew Boyd going against a weak Texas lineup. Those are going to be the guys I'm looking at there. If I'm over on Yahoo, it's very similar with most of the players. Gray is 3,700, which is right in the conversation. Now, your question is going to be, would you prefer Marcus Stroman at 36 against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh? Probably. He's just a buck less. You've got Kyle Gibson at a buck less as well, going against Kansas City, but that's a designated hitter. And then you got Cal Quantrill, who we haven't gotten to yet. So it'll be an interesting decision. But I do want to point this out that you don't want to pass this off at first blush. Adam, 2 games to go. Dakota, I am a ground ball wizard. Hudson going against the Oakland Athletics. Hudson 6,700 on DraftKings. Yeah, like him on that late slate for sure. Mike Fiers on the other side. You know, we don't like Fiers, but hey, Adam, he has 2 more no-hitters than you and I have combined. He has 2 of the 300 no-hitters in Major League history. What do you want to do with either of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to get to either one on this slate. It is a good park, favorable weather, all that. Hudson, not a strikeout guy, does a really good job keeping the ball on the ground. I'd have some interest if we didn't have such cheap price tags on guys like Aaron Sanchez and whoever's pitching for Texas, Adrian Sampson. Just because not that they're like better than Hudson or anything, but you're just getting a risky pitcher at a much cheaper salary as opposed to Hudson, who's still a really risky pitcher. On the other side, it's just tough to pay a mid-price range for Fiers. Kind of similar to Gibson. I could see getting him in some lineups just because the options around him, there's no one that really stands out like, I want this guy in as many lineups as I can get him in. But that's not a ringing endorsement by any means.
All right. Do you have a pitcher for our last game of the night for San Diego?
No, I don't. Just Walker Buehler.
Just double checking talk about Walker Buehler. Gets a nice matchup. He's a righty. Hey, wait for it. San Diego, lots of righties there. Nobody on the MLB starting pitchers page. Walker Buehler, 10,900 on DraftKings. The most expensive pitcher on FanDuel at 10,400. And the fourth most expensive pitcher at 4,800 on Yahoo. Talk to me about Walker Buehler. How are we feeling about his pitch count? That's always a risk. 100, 94, 100, 106, 96, 111, 100, 91, 102, 95, 99, 99, 97, 100, 95, 96, 92. I'm saying that's probably not as much of a risk as we would think. That was the whole point of that exercise. Talk to me for our last game, Walker Buehler against the Pod Squad.
I think that he's either him or Nola should be the cash SP1 on this slate. I think Nola obviously a little bit cheaper, not as good a pitcher, I don't think, as Buehler. On draft or on FanDuel, Nola's 10.5 and Buehler's 11.4. So again, you're getting a discount on Nola, and then 51 for Nola on Yahoo and 48 for Buehler on Yahoo. So Walker Buehler, easily your cash guy on Yahoo. On FanDuel and DraftKings, I would give priority to Buehler, but if you can't quite get to him, Nola's a perfectly fine consolation prize. But I think clearly just one of the top pitching options on the slate. Got a favorable matchup against a Padres team that strikes out a lot. Just lost one of their big power bats in Franmil Reyes in the Trevor Bauer trade that netted the Padres a minor league prospect. So don't have him in the lineup anymore. For the season, Buehler, 27.8% strikeout percentage, lowest walk percentage on the slate. I misspoke earlier when I talked about Boyd. Boyd has the third lowest behind however you want to phrase it, Bumgarner and Buehler. 3.43 xFIP for Buehler, 23.7% K minus BB percentage. Just a really, really good pitcher.
Yeah, good call out there from the Franmil Reyes trade. Looks like it will likely, we'll have to see what happens, Austin Hedges being the catcher. So this one is going to be I don't know what I want to say, watered down lineup, but not quite the same lineup that we have seen for the last couple weeks there for the Pod Squad. So Walker Buehler could be someone that we are definitely interested in. Again, check us out tomorrow morning, 11:15. Adam and I will be breaking down all of the games, including the early games, the 1, 2, and the 6 o'clock game by game, as we walk through that on the DFS Strategy Show. If you've not yet signed up for Osmo, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, get 50% off any 1-month package. All of our season-long NFL content is free right now. We have team-by-team breakdowns, courtesy of Nolan and Ben Raza, and then we have some other good stuff out there, and Osmo himself, Alex Baker's putting out his season-long draft rankings. So definitely check that out. If you've not been around very long, there's something called Twitter. You can find Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS there. You can find me at EMACDFS. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.